So think of it this way. You have this addictive, nutrient poor, calorie dense, sugar loaded with salt, oil, and sugar. And you're firing all these dopamine receptors in your brain, which makes you want to eat more, makes you feel good about eating it. And then on top of that, you have all these toxins that are in the food. Additionally, there could be caffeine thrown in there, who knows, as well as a whole host of other sort of toxins. And it's causing you to continue to eat, all day long. And it's never giving your body the time to go through a full detoxification, because then the next day, essentially you are, for most people, they're going to be potentially eating those things again. I mean, we have to really realize that bread is basically like eating sugar, unfortunately, for most people. And therefore, when the flour is milled into a fine flour, anytime you eat it, for most people, that is essentially like eating sugar. That is going to releasing dopamine to give you a rush. And that rush has an addictive quality to it, even if we don't, consciously feel it. In fact, they've actually done studies where they've given people a drug called naloxone, which blocks the opioid receptors. And this was given to people who were, overdosed to be able to block the drug. And amazingly, they gave people this, specifically with wheat. And believe it or not, their consumption of wheat actually decreased while they were on the naloxone, which basically means that there is some opioid-like release that happens with wheat. There is an addictive compound that's very much structured similar to morphine that exists in dairy that can actually cause somewhat of an addictive thing. And I know from counseling and helping people move to eating special diets, sometimes we have to take people off of dairy, and dairy can be one of the most difficult things and one of the most resistant things for people to give up, even if they're not actually conscious of why it's so difficult. People just have a great deal of difficulty if they need to give up dairy. And it's explainable from this phenomenon that I'm speaking about. So what happens when you get these buildup of toxins? Well, essentially you're getting, you might get, when you stop eating them, and of course you are basically dealing with what some people think of as hunger, which actually isn't. It's a toxic reaction. It's not hunger. We're talking about getting shaky, feeling weak, headaches, feeling uncomfortable, stomach aches, all those sorts of things. And what do people generally do who have that? They eat more to feel better. And when you eat more to feel better, that is basically a food addiction. So anytime you feel like you have this hunger where you're, again, shaky and fatigued and stomach ache, and you need to eat again to feel better, that is essentially a form of addiction. And that addiction, I hope you're understanding here, is not necessarily your fault at all. In fact, it's not your fault. It's just the fact that we live in a society where salt, oil, sugar, wheat, processed wheat, excessive dairy, all these sorts of things are leading to an increase in the quantity of addictive foods in our diet that is basically hijacking your system. The other thing to recognize that I always like to speak about, especially when talking about food, is that it often takes your body, it could take 20, 30 minutes for your body to feel full. In other words, it takes time for the signals in your stomach to actually reach your brain. And therefore we can end up overeating before we actually feel full. So the movement of, the slow food movement and the, taking time with your food is going to be incredibly beneficial. But ultimately, I like it because it introduces sort of an element of sacred time into your eating, that I always tell people to really try to cultivate an enjoyment of salads and the slow preparation of salads. There's something very sensual about it. There's something very caring for yourself about, making this salad with all these beautiful colored ingredients,